This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD via Zoom a very special guest, Bob Fioretti, who is running for Cook County Board President. How are you today, Mr. Fioretti?
Hey, I'm doing great. A great day to be on your program, and thank you for letting me be here to express my views on moving the county forward.
There is, hang on just a second. Your volume is not loud. Could you check your volume? It's let me see if it could be louder. Oh, hang on just a second. I know what's wrong. Hang on. There we go. Thank you so much for waiting. Bob, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Well, first of all, Bob, why are you running for Cook County Board of President?
Thank you for letting me be here this morning and talking about my vision of what Cook County should be. Toni Preckwinkle has been a failure of leadership. She's failed the citizens of this county on two of the most important issues, public safety and public health. Public safety should be a priority for everyone. It affects us, every county resident. It affects our daily lives. It affects our families, our communities, our schools, our jobs, our businesses, our health, and our livelihood. Crime has surged throughout Cook County, and the president, Toni Preckwinkle's answer is to laugh. And and essentially she says, well, it's about time crime is happening in Lincoln Park. No, that's not an answer. Crime has to be brought down. People have to have responsibility here, and her failures, along with her corrupt protege and hand-picked state's attorney, have put Cook County communities and residents in situations where they are far off worse than they were 10 and 15 years ago. These repeated failed, both of them have repeatedly failed our residents here by enacting harmful and dangerous policies that are impacting our communities. Preckwinkle was the leader of the defund police movement. She denigrates law enforcement, men and women, treats violent offenders as the victims, and she disregards law-abiding citizens, Cook County citizens. That's why I'm running, to restore a good, healthy county that attracts businesses and believes that the best way that people can, that we fight crime is by having people have good jobs, livable wages.
So how has Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle addressed good jobs and livable wages?
Well, I don't think she has. She's just been minimal in terms of her regard. She's closed down businesses during the COVID. She followed what 3 to 5 days after whatever Lori Lightfoot did, she did for the suburbs. And a lot of the suburbs that didn't follow what she did said they all were very healthy now, and they were healthy then, and they're healthy now. She gives minimal talk, and that's all it is, while passing out guaranteed income programs to 3,250 people, $500 a month that will continue, where they give no stake in the process. There's no opportunity for them to have job training, to have opportunities for education, whether it's going onwards to community colleges and or the trades. Nothing has been done to help the citizens of this county.
So what you're saying is that when those citizens that have the $500 guaranteed income for about 2 years, they do not at the same time get the job training nor opportunities for more education. Is that what you said?
Absolutely. There's no stake in the system. There's nothing to do here. Here's your $500 and go out and spend it any way you want. Well, and you know, you can be a legal resident, you can be illegally here, you can apply and get the money. I mean, what are we doing with this kind of government? And if people, when you give handouts with no responsibility, all you do is you create a dependency of people, and dependencies are not good for anybody.
Are there any models that you have seen elsewhere that give a supplemental income, but however also offer the opportunities that you mentioned for education and for jobs?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's not supplemental income. It's just a handout. Income means some sort of responsibility of doing something. And if we cannot help those that need it the most, like job training or education, then we're not helping anybody. In fact, we're bringing a society down lower and lower.
How would you help those that need job opportunities and more educational opportunities?
Oh, just like I've done in the past. I always had community benefit agreements with many of the projects that came into my ward. I created 8,000 jobs. I brought jobs here and made sure people had safe communities. I helped establish safe passage for the schools. We had job training programs at Dawson Academy at 35th and Michigan, and people then got jobs in their respective fields. I held job fairs 3 times a year for veterans, for the community, and for the city at large. And they were all very healthy. In fact, I had somebody just recently come to me and say, "Hey, Bob, I got to thank you. I still have the job of 10 plus years ago, thanks to a job fair that you had." You know, this is nonsense on what this so-called president is doing. She's not a steward of taxpayers' money, that's for sure. And that's what we must be. And we must use it wisely for the benefit of the people and for the benefit and help people.
What is the status of the Safe Passage Act now that you helped pass?
I'm sorry, what is the status of the what?
Safe Passage Act that you helped pass.
Well, what happened to Safe Passage, it was a creation out of the death of Reuben Ivy, who Crane High School is right down my block, about a 7-minute, 10-minute walk. And we helped create Safe Passage. In that program, what we did was we had pastors, police, parents, grandparents, guardians, make sure we walk the kids to school. And they did it not for the pocketbook, but for the passion of their kids. And now they do have Safe Passage at many of the schools. They pay the same Safe Passage people before the start of school and after, and it still is continuing. So it should be, it is happening.
But did you mean that before there were volunteers that looked after the kids as they went to and from school, but now how many are there still volunteers, or are they all paid people?
They are. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. They are really paid individuals who are escorting or making sure along the routes that our kids get to school safely.
How did that happen? The shift to paid individuals, and would you do anything to try to shift it back to volunteers?
I would like to see it volunteers because I think education is the key to a lot of the issues that affect this city and county. Parents need to partake in many of the activities of their children, and to make sure that they get to school safely and get home safely. Some of our neighborhoods are some of the worst for gunfire and gunshots and deaths that are happening. We need good, strong communities, which make safe communities, and it starts with at the home.
Any idea why the Safe Passage Act deviated from volunteers to paid? Is it any idea?
No, I can only speculate on what
Mm.
the Rahm Lightfoot administrations did and are
So,
doing.
so it happened under Rahm Emanuel and continued into the
And
Lightfoot
continue.
administration.
Correct.
What other programs do you see that are now more paid than volunteer, and like the state of the Safe Passage uh, Act, the way the Safe Passage Act became, and are there any other similar situations that you see right now that you could change as Cook County president? How before it was volunteer and now it's more paid, more profit rather than community.
Well, I really think at this point that we need to make sure that we have good jobs for our everybody in the communities. I think having jobs, people are good paying jobs in the communities help everybody. You probably may recall, I was the only alderman ever to close a food desert, and I had to fight City Hall to have not only food deserts, but we have pharmacy deserts, and we have much more grocery stored deserts in our communities. People want to feel safe. Safety is the number one concern. Wherever I go, I hear it. Up in your neck of the woods, a young attorney, he's not that young, he's been practicing probably 15 years, has told me he's moving out. I think Thursday or Friday, we had the discussion because of the shootings up in Rogers Park in that area. Even if you're not a victim of crime, but you fear what's happening in your neighborhood, people are looking over their shoulders. It's not healthy. I know on our block we've had several break-ins. And we had an armed robbery of somebody across the street unloading his groceries, and the older individual told the younger one who had a gun, shoot him in the leg. Luckily, the kid did not do that, but it shatters your view of safety. And the issues that are now are coming to a head, I've heard for years, and I've been trying to stop them. Tony Preckwinkle and Rahm Emanuel closed down the mental health places in health areas. And now she's all, well, we're going to open up more mental health. Well, you closed them down before. What did you think was going to happen? I've been a long-term advocate to reopen all of the mental health areas. And we need that for a safer, healthier community.
First of all, concerning those break-ins and that armed robbery, what neighborhood was that in?
On the Safe Passage?
No, the break-ins that you mentioned in your neighborhood.
I'm going to call it the West Side, but it's really now called the West Loop. Here on where I live on the Jackson area, Jackson Adam Historical District. We had somebody the other day that used the ladder to try to break into a second floor. And but it's happening throughout the city. And for people not to realize that safety is the number one issue, and that's why businesses are leaving. And when businesses leave, more people leave. I had a program with Rush Hospital, and we hired about 500 people from the, and a lot of them have moved out. And when Obla Homes, I'm going to use the old names, Henry Horner Homes, Rockwell Garden. We hired people from the area, and a lot of them have moved out, not only just out of the area, but out of the state and come back in for their jobs because they're good paying jobs. I mean, we can't continue down this pathway. It's as simple as that.
So what you just said is that you help those hundreds of individuals get jobs at Rush Hospital. However, because of public safety, they moved out of the city, but just came back, come to work in the city, but do not want to live in the city. Is that what you meant?
And that's correct.
Mm.
And if we don't have people that live in the city that don't give this is really a great city. And we see the beautiful skyline. Well, that beautiful skyline should be in every neighborhood in this city and in this county. Not the skyline, but it should be safety, good education, good jobs.
How were you able to find those people, those good jobs? Were they initially a lot of low-income people, and you helped them find good jobs at Rush Hospital?
Well, and I made sure it wasn't just at Rush, but they found good jobs, and not just the construction jobs, but the permanent jobs. The Costco at 15th and Ashland, the Target on Jackson, the police station when we built it over on Blue Island, the Pete's over on Western and Madison, just to name a few of the high-profile ones. The United, when United Airlines came to Sears, to Sears Tower, I made sure, my aim there was to make sure that all that demographics of young people would be staying in the city. And I came across many of them that moved here because they were working in the Sears Tower. We should be a vibrant city, a city that undertakes all that's good on what happens. And we should be number one. We hear all these polls about Chicago being the best tourist attraction or the best city, one of the best cities to live in. Well, the truth of the matter is you got to ask the residents and how they feel. And when 250,000 African-American middle class have moved out of the city because of violence, you've got to start questioning the leadership. And that starts with the county board and the mayor of the city of Chicago over the last few years, not just today.
Was that from the U.S. Census that determined that 250,000 African Americans moved out of Chicago?
Yes, that's happened over, I mean, essentially since I was the alderman in 06, 07, a continuing outflow. And people, I hear it. I was on the south side on Friday night, and some of the elderly who have the, can't move because they're on fixed incomes, Social Security. They no longer can get a job. And so that becomes a problem on what we need to do. And we need to have a livable county, livable city for all people in all zip codes, and a healthy one where we have opportunities for everybody.
Did you say that there are people on Social Security that still want to work? Is that on account of their Social Security is not enough for them to sustain their expenses?
Well, I think we see the bad policies that have come out of Washington, D.C. that have accelerated inflation. I mean, I think I saw some restaurant just recently take all of the prices off of the menus because they can't keep up with what comes in. So it's almost as if you have to ask the attendant who's taking your order on how much or whatever it is. I don't know how in this point that people can retire safely, whether you have a 401k or you're living on Social Security. It's the prices have gone up astronomically. It's very difficult to go, I think, for people to go out to eat with a family of four, no matter how much you make. And then you're forced to stay home, which is okay. And I'm not saying I think it's good for people to stay home and have good family discussions, but the price of all of the groceries are out of sight. And I just saw a gas station here on Ogden for regular is back up to $5.79. And the inflationary policies that have been, and don't forget, it would probably be a lot higher if the election ploy out of the governor and this governor, they all cut the gas tax until January 1st. Well, that's strictly well, here's how much gas is. Well, if they would show what they were going to do on the taxes, it would be much higher. Let's quit kidding ourselves. Everybody's doing these political moves for the election. They're not doing it for the long term. And that's the problem with Toni Preckwinkle. She's done a whole host of short-term budget items to garner votes. It doesn't matter how it affects the rest of the people and it affects them the day after the election. We're not going to get the tax bills. Our second installment should have been out in August. And all these small governments are hurting right now because some of them have to borrow money to pay for their employees, to pay their services. And and 4 years ago, when I debated her, she said her two top priorities were one, let's lower the jail population, and two, she was working with Joe Barrios to get the tax bills out on time. Well, the political infighting is what caused this delay in the tax bills going out at this stage. And her minions that are in all those different offices have had a series of secret meetings of the stakeholders. And who are they didn't include the public. They don't inform the public on what's going on. It's not a transparent and open government. So people have to get together and vote them all out of office on November 8th.
What stakeholders are you talking about, if not the taxpayers that are in those secret meetings?
Well, I have some minutes from one of the meetings here, and if I can, I'll try to find it. But it was the assessor's office, the treasurer's office, in fact, the board of review, all three of the commissioners, several offices under the president, the state's attorney's office, and their consultant Grant Thorpe. So those are the ones who they considered the stakeholders and not the taxpayers who have the most to lose. Because if they come, and we all know what's going to happen, it's going to be sticker shock. And if they come out after the election and they're talking about the first week of December, well, people are living paycheck to paycheck, and Christmas is around the corner. They want to take care of their families, and with high inflationary policies that we see coming out of DC, it's all going to impact us, and it's all people are not, and you have to pay your tax bill by the end of the year to get your deduction from the federal government. I mean, what are they thinking? They're not thinking. They're doing it in their own interests.
So what you mean is that if the tax bills come out after January the 1st, after December 31st, then the Cook County residents will not be able to get their deduction off the federal income taxes because they haven't paid their bill by December 31st.
Well, they have to have to get their deduction. They have to pay the full amount by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So who knows when the tax bills will come out? That's number one. And number two, it just impacts on families and on how they're spending and what they're thinking. I mean, we're in tough times. People aren't concerned with all these other issues. They're concerned with making sure their kids got a good education, paying their grocery bills, and paying their gas to get to and from and around. Public transportation here in the city is not reliable, And secondly, there's a growing fear of being on public transportation, and they have not done anything to address that either.
Before we introduce our arrival on the Zoom and the interview, could you also clarify or give us the context of when Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle mentioned that the Lincoln Park is about time that Lincoln Park had crime?
I have some, she didn't refer directly. I'll tell you if I can find it. Give me a moment as I walk away. So
we want to
I'm
welcome.
I'm coming back.
Okay, awesome.
So she said in the Tribune, she said that the point that residents in it's possible impact residents in more affluent neighborhoods are now getting a taste of what it's been like to live in Chicago zip codes that have heard gunfire and feared carjackings for years. And she made that observation with a sardonic chuckle. That was in the Tribune editorial. And so either way, however you look at it, I mean, it's not healthy for those that are in leadership positions to believe that the only way we're going to bring equity is to make sure everybody is a victim of crime.
If you don't mind, what is the date of the Tribune?
Today.
Today. Okay. Thank you so much. We have with us Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, who also joined us in this interview. Hello, Bill.
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Bill.
Hello, Wizard, and welcome, Bob. I'm so glad that you're here. Returning.
Glad to be here.
Returning to WZRD. There's so many questions to ask and so many things to say. Let's just start with public safety. You mentioned public safety, and you did mention Rogers Park, my hometown. We met recently at the scene of the drag racing. Can you tell us about what your thoughts of the drag racing are, and what you would do about this issue in our community?
Well, maybe it's a twofold question in terms of, one, the violence that's happening, and also the drag racing that is occurring. I've never, I am concerned about the violence that's happening in Rogers Park in the area, not just because one attorney has talked to me about it, but I've heard it from a number of citizens in the area over the period of the last 6 months. I think we can deploy and utilize the sheriff's office much more effectively and bring them together. And how? They just opened up an outpost in River North, the sheriff's office did. We can do the same in a couple of places throughout the city, in Rogers Park, in the south and west sides, to make sure that people are being effectively protected. If we have to, we've got to bolster up what we do with maybe the sheriff's police and take the police off of Michigan Ave and see. We've got, and at the same time, crime has been headed to the suburbs. I don't know if you saw, but it may have been a week ago, or it could have been 2 weeks ago today. The mayor of Forest Park, because of the crime that's coming into his area, because of the the CTA Blue Stop up there, and he along with the state rep have called on more resources to battle the crime that's coming into their neighborhoods. So I think we need to be able to utilize a much more effective sheriff's police department. And don't forget, she controls 3 budgets. And not only she controls 11 elected officials' budgets, but she controls Kim Fox's budget, and we should be utilizing the resources there, and especially their community programs to help lower the crime and start enforcing the law. And secondly, she controls the judicial court's budget, and we should be very effective on what we do there. And finally, the sheriffs, which are the three primary law enforcement entities that deal with the problems that face us. Now, getting to your question on drag racing, I think the city council may have taken an effective first step, but we must be, we need to tell the state's attorney's office to start enforcing the law on these drag racers and push for it's dangerous, not just to the individuals in those cars, but bystanders that are there. And some of them are just innocent because they walked into a situation, not because they were watching it. And we need to have full enforcement of the law.
And then for our local economy.
Well, I think there's you've got a lot of great things happening up north. I enjoy coming up there. Whether it's for a slice of pizza or going to some of the other spots, and we're very active in Loyola. My wife is, and we've always helped them out. She's now handling the business school advisory board. She's got the president of it, and both downtown Loyola and up there. And I was just recently up there. Well, I've been up there a few times, but I met with NBOA up there, and which helps a lot of those that are housing providers. And they had several hundreds of people up at their reception that was out on the Loyola campus, and it was thank goodness it was a nice, warm, no rain day up there.
And for in Rogers Park, we fought to can the tax, the soda tax, which included not only sodas, but also baby formulas. And people went outside of Cook County line to get the cheaper prices. They'd rather spend the gas and load it up than come back. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad we did, because I joined in on that, and I know Sean Morrison, who one of the deputy commissioners, and Richard Boykin, who Tony Preckwinkle put up a lot of money to defeat because of his opposition to it. My view is I'm glad we did that, but what happened was it started a trend. I saw a woman just recently again who lives at 76 and South Shore, in that neighborhood, not on South Shore exactly, but I think Colfax or so. And she started going to Indiana to buy all of her products. And she's still doing that now. And she's buying gas in Indiana. And she goes every Saturday in the midday. She has some services in the morning, and almost religiously drives up there to Indiana, and there she is every Saturday. It started, if you can't move, it's a way that you buy your products, even though they opened up a Mariano's down at only a mile and a half away from her house.
Easier to do on the southeast side, I bet.
Yeah,
and then also, you've been an alderman for so many years. So what experience as alderman are you going to bring as Cook County Board President?
Well, one thing, a lot of people saw me as a anti-corruption candidate, fiscally responsible, one who was a fiscal steward of our resources and our money. And I think the two mayors always made it that I was always against them. Well, I would introduce anywhere from 50 to 70 ordinances on some meetings. And within a meeting or two, because of the way the process goes, they all got passed. It's working together. It's how we work together with all of our folks. And I'm going to bring a spirit of cooperation, fiscal stewardship to our budget, to look to the future where we can have a good, great county, whether you live on the far southern regions or you live on the northern end of this county. And our southern regions have a lot of issues. They've been fiscally challenged since the steel mills have left out. And quite frankly, she hasn't done anything for them. She's created a few programs, but they're all election day tactics. I wonder what's going to happen after the election.
And one more thing in this round for me. If you approach Toni Preckwinkle and you do not call her Madam President, you get an immediate snub. And I made that mistake one time. It seems like you're far more approachable. How approachable are you? How in tune with the community are you? How much are you out there? And how much of your constituents' opinions will you take to heart and turn into legislation?
Well, this is a big county, over 5 million people, and you have to listen to them. I'm out there all the time, and I enjoy listening to people and their concerns. I'm here to help people. I've been a seasoned litigator. I'm a certified mediator with a very diverse range of legal experience. I serve on the Illinois State Board of Governors, which helps make decisions for our attorneys. I'm also on the Board of Managers for the Chicago Bar Association. I'm vice chair of the Anti-Human Trafficking Committee. I serve on a Chicago Children's Advocacy Board, and I mentor several students at NIU. I have a scholarship. I also am secretary of the George M. Pullman Educational Foundation. This year alone, we gave away 102 scholarships to those at academic need in the county for colleges. And when I say 102, they're 4-year scholarships. This year we gave away 27, and there were 25, 25, and 25 as these young people graduate who need financial assistance, given the way our higher educational system has been created. And I am active in all of our communities.
And you march annually in the Norwood Park Parade.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you serve on all those boards. Were any of those board positions appointed by the governor? Did any of the governors appoint you to some of these boards?
No, I haven't been appointed to any of the boards by the governor or by the mayor or by, because I probably will challenge what those boards sometimes do and how they spend money. I don't see, a lot of it is spending money for the people, for their pay to play is not gone off the system. We see that often. And we see it in the lobbyists that they hire, who they hire, and what they hire. And, you know, there are good companies out there that need assistance, that need help, that would have aims to hire from our neighborhoods. And we need to give them the best of opportunities. And we should be an equal opportunity employer. I remember when I was alderman, some rumors had started that I was going to be anti-developer or whatever. Well, the South Loop, West Loop grew under a very strategic plan, not on some of the stuff you see now. And so we have to be cautious on what we do. I had community meetings that had 150 people all the time to talk about projects. There was information wasn't just given out in the area by emails, because I'm not sure if everything is read in their emails. But we would leaflet homes and businesses to make sure we came. That's what led to one of the award-winning parks, Mary Bartlemy, right just west of Greektown. We had several meetings on how to design that with the people. And when you have 150 people show up and they all have a different opinion, on whether you should have a slide, a dog park, a sandbox, misters, or whatever. You mold it together and take everyone's opinions, and you create one of the best parks, not only in the nation and the award-winning park, but in the world for a small, complete block.
How does the Democratic machine address your campaign, your present campaign? And while you were, while you were an alderman and then you ran for re-election, you did all these wonderful things. Any insight about how the Democratic Party machine addressed your election plans?
Well, I heard from the machine insiders that they were really opposed, and because they know I offer a vision for the future. And we heard some remarks from those that are committeemen or high officials in the Cook County Democratic Party about how disgusting it is. But the truth of the matter is, I was recruited, I was cajoled, I was asked over and over by some of the leaders of the Republican Party to run for this position because I demonstrated leadership, I demonstrated independence, I demonstrated fiscal responsibility, and I would represent all of the people, and I was an anti-corruption candidate. Simple as that.
When you were an alderman, how did you how were you able to be transparent and accountable, and how would you apply that to your position if you were elected as Cook County Board President?
Well, I do the same thing as I did when I was alderman. Now, it's a much bigger county, but I would have community meetings throughout the year. I would make sure our budget is not resolved in 2 weeks, but we'd have hearings from the people and going out to the neighborhoods. I would have, and it is a big county and it's a very diverse, which is really our fabric of greatness. But I'd be in the southern suburbs, from Homewood Flossmoor to Robbins to Harvey, Dixmoor, listening not only to the people, but to the elected officials. And I'd gather them around and have monthly meetings with them. Whether you're in the western suburbs, the northern, southern, and with the aldermen here in the city of Chicago, and see what they need, what they want, and deal with the 11 different departments that we have to deal with in the county. I think it's very important to keep that contact flowing.
So when you were alderman, you met with the people a lot, is what you're saying. And then, but if you were Cook County Board President, you would extend that to a greater geographical area.
Yeah, and yes, and I would have essentially 4 meetings a year. I had ward night too. Every Monday, I would have ward night, and people would come in and address their issues until, and it was meant for the residents. But what happened was soon I had people from outside my ward and even outside parts of the county come in and talk about their problems. People want to be heard. People are struggling then because we had a lot of the foreclosure crisis that was happening, and people are really struggling now.
Did they come to you for just to be heard, or did they come to you for advice when they came to your ward meetings, the non-residents?
How about both? And I still get my phone rings off the hook with people that want advice, direction, what to do and where to go.
Did you have any audits of spending so that you are transparent while you were alderman?
Did I have any audits? Or, I'm not going to say I did, but what I hear from people that know, a lot of them who currently still live in the 2nd ward or have moved out, saying you were the best alderman we ever had. And I've heard it from other aldermen saying, gosh, I've gone through your ward. It's not what it used to be. I mean, I would have 3 or 4 cleanups a year in every section of the ward, and big ones. I once had one of the people from Streets and Sand tell me, they always have this cleanup day, right, in April or whatever. And this high-ranking person said, you're the only one who participates in this. We don't even know why we do it through the rest of the wards. We would have several hundred people. I get the schools involved, the community involved, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts involved, Boys and Girls Clubs involved, to clean up our communities. So I feel good when I become Cook County Board President. Let me tell you that. We're going to have a transparent, open administration that is dedicated to the people and not to the pocketbooks of the few.
Well, are you planning any audits of if you win the office? Would you be doing any audits of the books?
Well, one of the things unfortunately, the way this election works, I mean, you get voted in on November 8th. A lot of offices take place, they assume offices in January. We assume offices on the first Monday of the month. It's less than a month. So I'm going to hit the ground running the moment the polls close, because I feel it's going to be favorable on November 8th.
So what you're saying is that you will assume office on December the 1st? Is that what you meant?
I think it's the 5th.
The 5th.
It's that first Monday of the month of the year. And yes, it is December 5th.
Okay. Oh, earlier you mentioned that there was a restaurant that had to remove all the prices because the prices kept on going up. Do you still remember what that restaurant is?
One of the restaurants were what? It was hard to hear.
The restaurants that the one restaurant you said had to remove all the prices off the menus because the prices kept on rising.
I heard it then. No, I don't recall right now. Yes.
Do you recall what neighborhood then?
No.
That's okay.
It was pointed out to me by a couple of people recently and 2 separate times. Yes.
How can your work as an as your former work as an assistant state's attorney and as a mediator help you in your work as Cook County Board President?
Well, I was I was a senior supervising attorney in the Corporation Counsel's office, and I think we can all work together. And there are ways. Look, the number of state's attorneys that are resigning from that office because of morale issues and not having the state's attorney herself back career individuals is uncalled for. And to have the president of the board saying, well, it's just too bad. If they can't follow what my hand-picked protege wants to do, then it's too bad. Well, it's time. If we look at the Safety Act, there are 100 state's attorneys out of 102 opposed to the Safety Act here. And the 2 are both been funded, and I think the second one was also funded by George Soros. Kim Foxx was clearly funded by George Soros. And he has an anti-police, anti-civilian citizen agenda. And the Safety Act has now, there's over 50 state's attorneys have filed lawsuits against it about the implementation of it. And if we have to wake up, and Kim Foxx followed the direction of her mentor, who was always before the Safety Act came into play, she was advocating these policies, and we see what's happening in our streets.
And why again is George Soros funding these defund the police campaigns?
You know, that's a wonder on what everybody thinks about. Why is he so anti-citizen, anti-safety, pro-crime, pro-violent criminal? Somebody should ask him, but I bet you he doesn't want to get up on an interview to say why he's bent on the destruction of good neighborhoods and good communities.
What are your other accomplishments that you will apply to your service as a Cook County Board President if you were to win?
Well, I think when I was the alderman, I made sure that I had more schools than any other school. I had more senior homes. I had more churches than any other ward. But I always believed that high quality education, whether it's going on to better opportunities or into the trades throughout, not just in my ward, but throughout the city of Chicago, strengthens communities. And essentially through economic and community development. And that's why I was able to create over 8,000 jobs. You know, I've served on a lot of several boards, and I see the community input into them. I think people working together. See, the Democratic Party is designed to divide. They no longer work to, if you don't agree with them and with the Democratic Party, you are going to pay the price. And the price is expulsion. And the price is ridicule. The price is, they will not attack your policies. They will attack you personally.
Mm-hmm. Did you participate in the endorsement sessions of the IVI-IPO, the Independent Voters of Illinois Independent Precinct Organization endorsement sessions?
No, I did not. And I'll tell you why. Because they're run by people like Toni Preckwinkle. They're all supporters of her. One of her the people that run the organization works for her. I mean, why go through the charade? I saw it happen before when you can offer better policies that are in line with what the inclusion of what the IVI says, but they're no longer an inclusive body, and they're minimal in their impact. They only have a few members. They may have a dinner that comes out and they'll have 50 to 100 people once a year. You know, they used to be an effective organization for change, for transparency, for openness, for good government, for being stewards of our finances. But the IVI lost all that years ago.
Why? Why did how and why did they lose all that?
Because it's been taken over by people that work for or have been out of Toni Preckwinkle's ward. I mean, there are some entities, why even go through? And that's one of them. They're a minimal organization. And it's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. They were a good organization. I don't know if you remember Bob Mann and Congressman Mikva, those folks that started those organizations. And they're long gone.
Mm-hmm.
Long gone.
A common question at the IVI-IPO endorsement sessions seems to be, what is your position on women's reproductive rights? And so what is your position?
It's unfortunate that becomes the only common question that they have, because they have no other questions. They're not worried about crime. They're not worried about people getting beat up on the streets. They're not worried about high inflation that's caused out of both Washington and Springfield. They're not worried about the Safety Act. Instead, they focus on a sole issue, which is an important issue. I follow what abortion is between a woman and her doctor and her conscience. I'll tell you, I write several articles on mental health for various organizations. And I'm trying to remember, I thought it was only a few weeks ago, but it was sometime during the summer. Two separate males came up to me because they have read my articles, not together, but apart. One was married to the woman who did have an abortion, and one who had a girlfriend who had an abortion, not recently, several years later. And they were all both having issues of conscience. They think about it every day. Or one of them said to me, what would I have done if? It's a tough decision. That's not, you know, the women that have it make very tough decisions.
Mhm. Well, what about homelessness? Would you have any policy regarding the homelessness that we see now? As for instance, what we see in Tui Park with all the tents and the homeless people.
Well, there's a couple of things. Homelessness is not just well, a lot of it happens there by the grace of God. Sometimes people live in paycheck to paycheck. I see a couple on one of the expressways with their two kids begging for money. We need to have good, solid policies, but some of it is tied into mental health, making sure people have jobs, substance abuse. It's not a singular problem, but we need to address it. And we need to, I've had several homeless shelters in my ward. That's why I fought, you know, don't forget the mayor wanted to cut off all the water for the not-for-profits. And I fought against that, and I got everybody to make sure that they had their water. Why was that important? Because a lot of those homeless people would take showers in the facilities. That's not, you know, they have to feel good. They have to wake up and say, hey, I'm glad I'm here. And not go on a street corner, on one of the street corners out here or off the expressway every day. It's tough, I'll tell you that right now. And we need to find ways, find jobs, find opportunities for those that do not have homes.
When you mentioned that a lot of the mental health centers were closed, what is the status of those buildings now? Are they empty, or are they still there and are able to be reopened for mental health services?
I don't know what the status is, but you've raised an interesting question because the ineptitude of how this administration treats the healthcare system. We have Cook County and Providence. Providence, we don't have the beds filled. We don't, it's only a few minutes away. We should turn that into some way to deal with mental health issues. We have schools that are still closed. Maybe we should look at them to make them into community centers and open up parts of it into mental health centers. There's with creative thinking, we can solve the problems, which is lacking in Tony Preckwinkle's administration.
Again, when is the date of the election, and what is your ballot number?
I wish I knew the ballot number. I can't tell you, but it's November 8th. And it's an important election for everybody for the direction of this city, this county.
And when does early voting begin, and where could people vote in early voting?
I know there's two sites right now. One is at Clark and Lake that you can come and vote for right now. Early voting between the suburbs and the city is a little bit different, but I think within the next few days, early voting will start. Throughout, there'll be one precinct or one voting location in all of the 50 wards. So I don't have that information in front of me.
That's okay. Were you challenged on your circulating petitions? And you are on the ballot, right?
Yes, it was a little bit interesting how I was put on the ballot. As I said, I was recruited, and I had to have long discussions with my wife about even running again. I wasn't going to run again. But what happened was, you have to be endorsed by all of the committeemen, all 50 and all the township ones. And then you had to get on the ballot with a limited number of signatures in I think it was a 10 or 12-day period. We were 4 times over in terms of the signatures that we received.
And what is the number? What is the number for the requirement? And how much did you get?
It was less than 2,000, but we had, and I think we threw out lots of pages. We had almost 6,000, I believe. I may be guessing on some of that. Okay, so don't hold me, but we were we had people out there, and they got them. I was endorsed. There were other people that were thinking about it, but when I stepped forward, they saw I had a vision of the county, a vision that's in tune with all people of this county, that would provide opportunities, being a good and a steward of all the financial resources. And then the Democratic Party did not challenge my signatures. So I thought that was good all the way across the board.
So you weren't challenged at all then?
No, it was not challenged.
What was the most difficult part about your campaign so far?
Well, it's a lesser campaign in terms, if you were running in a primary, you could have had an organization set up, generating money, generating ways to get the message out. And we really didn't start till the end of August, so we've only really been in this a little bit over a month. And this is a big county, but it's such a great diverse county of so many people, and so and the Republican Party, especially of Cook County, is not closed-minded like the Democrats are. It's very diverse: Black, white, Asian, Latino, young, old. They espouse openness. They accept diverse opinions, and it's much more healthier than the way the Democratic Party is aligned here in Cook County, and it's a lot different from what you hear from the national media.
So you're saying that the national media is slanted toward the Democratic Party then?
Oh, I would say that. You know, I read the newspapers, I listen to all the programs, and I think it's very slanted.
Also, you mentioned earlier that the southern sections, I guess you mean the southern suburbs, they are being ignored by the Cook County Board. What are the issues that they need addressed, and how is the Cook County Board ignoring them?
Oh, I think if you drive through the southern suburbs, you see the foreclosure rate's absolutely astronomical. You know, they're hit harder. A lot of the even their own employees, they may have a residency requirement, but their employees live in Indiana. So that means they take the money that they make there in their city and spend it in their own across the border. I mean, it's not a healthy, and once a lot of the blue class jobs left, blue collar jobs left the city and the suburbs, nobody came in. Our leadership was lacking in vision on what to do. And there we are.
When did the middle class blue collar jobs start leaving? And under what administration?
The late 70s, mid 80s. And then I invite anybody to come with me. Come to these suburbs and come to the south side and west side. Despite the fact that the pronouncements that we hear, there is no improvement. I mean, I do see those that remain, and I talk to a lot of them, that they try their best. But, you know, trying their best sometimes is not enough. And we need to bring economic growth and opportunity. And by doing that, we help everybody. Not just doing, again, government handouts, which is the hallmark of the Preckwinkle administration and the failure of her administration. I don't know, she'll go out for a ribbon cutting here or there or for some meeting, but that's it. It's time for a leadership that's going to undertake and solve everybody's problem and not just pad the pocketbooks of people and contributors.
And when you mentioned that the south suburbs have all these economic problems, how long has this been going on? These economic problems?
It's been going on for quite a while. You know, I'm not going to say it happened overnight, but this administration, Toni Preckwinkle, has been aware of it. And all of a sudden she's now, because in the Democratic Party, she knew she'd win. Now that she's got some challenges on people that throughout this county are opposed to her, and Republicans can vote, and independents now who don't vote in primaries can vote. She's now coming up with programs to solve the problems. Really, where has she been?
So the problems in these southern suburbs started with the Preckwinkle administration, is what you're saying?
I think some of it, she's known about it for over 12 years. I'm not saying all these problems started underneath her, because she was not there in the 80s, but she saw the same problems in her ward when people were moving out. She was the alderman and committeeman. And what the Democratic Party has done is not help people of the southern suburbs. And I think they're waking up. We've got some fine candidates that are running there.
And approximately, what is the proportion of the Cook County population in the southern suburbs versus the entire whole? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't, because you can extend how the southern suburbs go and what happens with them. But, you know, we need to have taken positive steps for economic development a long time ago, and not just for an election ploy when she has some tough competition.
Well, if you were to, let's say, if you were to get, because of your campaign and how you promised to help the southern suburbs, if the majority of, you get a lot of votes out of the southern suburbs, is that a major number? Is that a number that is very helpful for you?
Well, the programs I offer is going to benefit everybody throughout the county, not just the southern suburbs. I understand the problems of many of these southern suburbs, but I also understand the issues facing people up in the northern suburbs and what we need to do there. My platform is to help everybody, not just a few. And we will do that by implementing programs that bring good economic policies and bring jobs and economic opportunities to all of the areas. And some areas need less, but at the same time, they need other, say they don't need this, they may need that. And we need to be comprehensive in our approach.
So what you're saying is that a lot of the problems in the southern suburbs apply to as well to the northern suburbs.
I'm not saying a lot of the issues are different. They have different issues. But safety is number one issue of everybody. But if you don't have a job, that's your issue. That's the issue that affects you. If you've been a victim of crime, that is an issue that affects you. Some people may not think that crime is an issue unless they become a victim of crime.
And aside from crime, what are some issues that you would help with for the folks in the northern suburbs that are different from those in the southern suburbs?
Well, I think wealth is a factor. A lot of them have good, you know, I mean, you can go down a list it's almost whatever the issue is, the southern suburbs may be different from the northern suburbs. You know,
What,
I think Tony Preckwinkle has a view, well, you know what? The south end of the city and west end and the southern suburbs, you know, might as well be brought up to the north end. That's what she said on crime. That's her view. So that's probably her view on everything else. It is not a healthy view for anybody.
what individuals and organizations have endorsed you?
I don't have them all. There are some that have endorsed me that are continuing. But one thing I hear from people and from organizations, we're afraid to endorse you because she's vindictive. I've heard that word vindictive over and over again.
Mhm.
So, and people don't want to contribute. Why? Because she's vindictive. Well, that is not healthy leadership for anybody, for any whether it's a small organization or a county serving 5.2 million people.
Mm. Because that, what you're saying is that it's not healthy because it destroys democracy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Did the people who said that they're afraid of the vindictiveness, any descriptions of what kind of vindictiveness we're talking about?
I've heard it from businesses, big and small. I've heard it from organizations. So I downplay if anybody has endorsed her, it's not worth the paper they're printed on. And even their members have come to me and said, we're still voting for you.
You mean members of the Cook County Democratic Party?
I've heard it from members of the Cook County Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm. And also you're saying that some of the businesses and organizations, they're afraid to not endorse her because there will be they could be on the receiving end of retaliation.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, vindictive means what it means. And I'm not using that word that came out of my vocabulary. It's a word that came out of those entities, people, organizations.
Well, later after the interview, if you would like to send me the names of individuals and organizations that have been willing to endorse you, we could include those in the description of this interview.
Sure, I will. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Bob Fioretti, candidate for Cook County Board President. And also, thank you so much, Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, for joining us on WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.